back. This is Steve Sanson and Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Before we go along with our rants, just want to introduce the two guests that's going to be on the show. We're going to have Craig Lake, candidate for Clark County Board of County Commission, District C, and Veterans in Politics endorsement recipient. And then we're going to have Barry Herr, candidate for Clark County Board of County Commission, District A, and a Veterans in Politics endorsement recipient. What do you think about that there, Jim Jonas?
Oh, it's a good lineup. I got plenty of questions for Ball, so should be interesting.
Yeah? So what's new in your world?
Not too much actually new, just so just lead into my rant, because I actually have a rant today.
You got a rant today? Yeah.
I know that, I got feedback that some of the listeners don't think that what we say are necessarily rants. They're more like public service announcement stuffs. But
I guess it depends on who's listening.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I actually do have a rant. And then, now that we're like in depth into the presidential race now, I'm a little frustrated at people in general. I just think that, what? We have one life to live.
To live?
To live. I mean, let's think about it. And it's not Mitt Romney's responsibility to make your life better. It's not Barack Obama's life. It's or responsibility. It's yours. And you have one life to live. And if you don't take responsibility for your own life, then shame on you. And then I said that to a group that I was talking to this week. And they said, well, part of the problem is that these politicians, they promise things they can't deliver. And I'm like, okay, well, if they don't deliver those promises, why do you vote for them? Mm. And then they talked about how they're tired of Republicans always talking about Ronald Reagan. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, here's the thing. One of the reasons why people talk about Ronald Reagan, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, even Barack Obama brings up Reagan all the time. I'm like, well, that's because he's the last actual president we've had, in my opinion. When he was asked questions, he gave straightforward answers. Uh-huh. They asked him, what's your plan to defeat the Soviet Union? He said, well, here's my plan. We win, they lose. He didn't have to give details. He just made you proud to be an American. The thing that really upsets me about a lot of people now is we're looking like, oh, well, how can Romney help our lives? Or how can Barack Obama help our lives? That's the wrong way to look at it. How can you help your own life? And I'm just going to be blunt. Here's an idea. Get your ass up off the couch and actually do something. If you don't like where you are right now, get up and do something. I don't care if you're sick, if you're tired, you don't feel good. You know what? This morning, I woke up and I didn't feel good either. But you know what I did? I got up, I drank some water, I shoveled some coffee down my throat, and I went out and I cleaned out my backyard. That wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but that is something that's going to help my life. So my rant today is specifically this. Quit depending on politicians to better your life. Do it yourself. The listeners out there, you have to understand, you are the most privileged people ever. If you were born and raised in the United States of America, we treat our dogs in this country better than most people. You think about it, we do. And for people to sit around and cry that, oh, I don't think Romney's going to do enough for me because he made $14.1 million last year. Well, so what? So you're punishing him for being successful? I guarantee he didn't lay on the couch all day. He got up and did something. And Barack Obama's been successful in his life, too, because, you know what? He didn't lay on the couch all day either. Neither one of these two men sat around and cried and bitched and whined as much as these people that I hear now.
You know that saying, it's not what your country could do for you, is what you could do for your country.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to piggyback on that point because even though I never served in the military, but one of the reasons why I am so committed to veterans and politics is because I understand that I would not have the rights that I have today and the privileges that I have if it wasn't for all those men and women out there to do those things that, unfortunately, if I had to do it all over again, I would have done. So you are showing a disrespect to them when you sit on your couch and you whine and you cry about, oh, Romney's not doing enough, Obama's not doing enough. You know what? Grow up. Just do what you need to do. If something needs to be done, let's get it done. And that's why I said it's a true rant today, because I'm just upset. I'm tired of hearing it. If something isn't going right in your life, it's your responsibility to fix it. And those men and women that put themselves on the front line every single day in our armed forces are giving you that opportunity, and you're not taking advantage of it. So shut up, grow up, and do what you need to do. If something's not going good in your life, figure it out. Fix it. Ask for help. Whatever it needs to be. But honestly, Steve, I'm just tired of hearing people talk about, well, I think Obama will do this. I think Romney's doing that. You know what? Screw Obama and Romney both. And I don't mean that as disrespect to any one of them. I'm just telling the American people that I want them to take some ownership for their own lives. Quit looking at what Romney can do for me or Obama can do for you. And like you said, Steve, just like John F. Kennedy said, don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Ask what you can do for yourself to make this a better country. And just say things to the men and women that are out there sacrificing more than most of you lazy asses are doing, sitting on your couches bitching about stuff. Wake up, smell the coffee, and let's get to work and quit whining. I'm just tired of all the whining.
Especially those people that actually don't vote, those people that are not registered to vote, those people that give themselves all the excuse in the world not to vote, those people out there that don't even know who the candidates are or what they stand for, and those people out there that just vote for party, and sometimes a Republican might be more liberal than his Democratic opponent, you know. And I call that lazy voters, people that actually just vote down party line and don't even know nothing about that candidate that they're voting for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, just you have again, let's go back to the armed services. The reason why you have the ability to vote is because of all the servicemen and women have fought for your right to be able to do that. So exercise that right. I don't care. You know, I may disagree with you. I'm not the most liberal person, and I'm not the most conservative person, and I will stand up for your right to say whatever you want, and I'll debate you whether you're left or right, doesn't matter. But if you don't vote, then don't complain.
You know, my rant's a little different, Jim Jonas. My rant goes like this. And the reason why I'm going to bring this up, I had this judge, and I don't want to mention any names, but I had this judge that we didn't endorse. Okay, he saw me at another judge's function that we're going to present an endorsement to, and he goes, "I don't want nothing to do with veterans in politics. I don't want nothing to do with you guys because you guys didn't vote for me." So this judge felt entitled that we should have voted for him because he's been a judge for all these years. So I said to this judge, I said, with all due respect, what have you done for veterans in politics? What have you done for veterans, period? You ran unopposed in 2 of your races. You just sat behind that bench, stay in your chambers. You didn't even come out to the community and meet the community. You just collected $170,000 a year. Well, I've been helping the community out all the time. Every time I help the community out. I said, really? I said, how about if I take away that $170,000 a year, would you still be helping the community out? I said, you get a paycheck, okay? You get medical, you get dental, you probably get a life insurance, okay? And you also probably got invested. You're going to get a retirement. I said, are you kidding me? So what I'm saying to these politicians and these judges and whatever you are, the ones that rant and say how much you help the community, you're getting a goddamn paycheck from the taxpayers. That's what you're getting. You should be out there helping the community. Take away that damn paycheck. Let's see how much help in the community you actually do.
No, I couldn't agree more.
Take away that paycheck. I bet you wouldn't do a damn thing with the community. You're getting a paycheck. Your job is to help the community, so do your damn job. This is Steve Sampson, Jim Jones of Veterans in Politics. Don't go away, folks. We're going to be back momentarily with Craig Lake. Hello, my name is Steve Sampson. I'm the president of Veterans in Politics International. This country and state are in trouble with budget cuts, unemployment, foreclosures, teacher shortage, dropout rates, terrorism, and a loss of military service members. The outcome of this election will profoundly affect families, both military and non-military. Military men and women are dying for other countries to have the right to vote. As a former member of the United States Marine Corps and the Army, I know how important it is to keep the voters informed. Log on to the website veteransinpolitics.com. All Americans of voting age need to not only vote, but research your choices. The Veterans in Politics organization has taken a proactive approach to supporting candidates who will have the courage to protect all of our freedoms and our Constitution. Visit our website at veteransinpolitics.com. Don't just talk about who you support. Research your choices and vote. Americans have been fooled by politicians about illegal immigration. They make you think that if you bring up this topic, you are a racist. Did you know that America is the only country on this planet that does not enforce its federal immigration laws? For the fear of being called a racist, I am for legal immigration. I was born on the island of Jamaica, became an American citizen, served 12 years in the U.S. military, served in Desert Storm, and received a Presidential Unit Citation, National Defense Medal, and Marine Corps Commendation. Our immigration laws serve a purpose. I understand that this country was founded on immigration, but there is a wrong way and a right way. I'm here to tell you that illegal immigration is breaking our federal laws. Why don't you call me a racist? This is Steve Sampson. While growing up, I've always asked my family, who is my father? I was told the name of a man. When I became older, I looked for this man and found him. He thought that I was his son as well, but after a DNA test, it was discovered. Well, we're back to Steve Sampson, Jim Jones, and Veterans in Politics. We got Craig Lake, candidate for Clark County Board of County Commission District C. Mr. Lake, how you doing today, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Not a problem. Could you tell us about yourself?
I'm a small business owner, born and raised in Las Vegas. Been in Las Vegas my whole life. Started a lighting sales agency in 2003 and decided to run for county commission because, like everyone, I'm concerned with the economy here in the valley.
That's it?
That's it. That's my whole life story. 20 seconds or less.
Why are you running this race, Craig?
Well, I ran for Congress in 10 and, spent a lot of time talking to voters, and the more I ran, the more I realized the challenges we had locally. And I think a lot of times, especially in this political season with a presidential candidate on the ballot and a few other federal races, people are so concerned with the large picture that they don't realize what's happening right before their noses. And, we've seen locally here with the water rate increases and some of the local contracts that have been voted on. I firmly believe that this position is going to have more effect on my life in the next few years, possibly than some of these larger races. They're both important, but you can't just focus on the top. And so I had a few people come to me, voters and things like that, and they asked me to run, and thought about it and felt with my experience in business that it really lended itself to the county commission, and decided to run.
Actually, why are you running against the incumbent?
Well, he voted on a bus contract for the RTC that was $50 million higher than the lower bid, and he said that it was because he was a loyal guy. That was his quote in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. They had the Las Vegas paving bid for the 215, where they took the bid that was $5 million higher than the lowest bid, and then they ended up having to settle for $5 million to the low bidder. So there's a lot of situations like this where I don't think we're doing what's in the taxpayer's best interest. I don't know whose interests are being protected, but it's not the people of the Las Vegas community, and that's something that I definitely will do in office.
Well, Craig, one of the main questions that I have for you is, I was kind of skeptical of you at first, and this is back when you ran for Congress, and Stacey Brock told me, said, you really need to listen to this guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's somebody's guy altogether. And the more and more I hear you talk, I agree with her. I think you do.
Well, I appreciate that.
My thing is that, okay, so you are a business person, and you do understand a lot of things that the average person does not. Mm-hmm. Would that be fair?
I don't know if I understand more, but I think I understand in areas that are needed on the county commission better than, maybe some people that are currently on the board.
So my thing is that what's your strategy to be able to communicate with the average voter to get yourself elected? Because your incumbent, quite frankly, I don't dislike or like the guy one way or the other.
Right.
Personally. But I just think he has done a really good job at communicating with the community. So how are you going to overcome that?
Well, where I would disagree with that, and we had in the Veterans in Politics interview that we did, he was asked point blank, when we see these issues come up in the paper, we see Steve Sislak's name, we see Chris G's name, occasionally we see Lawrence Weekly's name. Where are you? And in your guys' interview, he said, I like to stay out of the paper whether it's good or bad. So as far as being elected official, I promise you that I will do a better job conveying the message, communicating with the community. I think Commissioner Brown does a good job behind the scenes with the people that matter. But with the everyday people bringing up issues, like some of the issues I'm talking about that are bids that are challenging, I don't know that those are being brought to the public's attention.
So hold on. You're saying that he doesn't take a controversial stand. He doesn't attack.
No. He is more than willing to take the path of least resistance. Anybody who, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I think he's a good guy. I think he's done some things for the Valley over the last 16 years in office where he's served the community. I appreciate that. There's no way would I ever disrespect that. But there comes a time, and you see it with all politicians, it's not just him, where they have been there for so long that it's time for a different voice. So as far as being elected, there's no question in my mind that I can convey my message better than anywhere else. The challenge is when you have an incumbent who's collected over the last 4 years over $500,000, and you have businesses in the community who are scared to, whether it's donate money or do certain things because they don't want to upset the county commission and have someone show up at their door checking their business licenses the next week, it becomes a very challenging proposition for the Valley. And so what I can do is everything I can do, which is I'm a local business owner. I've spent some of my own money. We've called a lot of voters in the last 3 years. We've walked a lot. We've done a lot of things to reach out to the community. But it's not my job to elect myself. It's the people of this country, and it will be the people in Clark County that decide if they want to, if they want this county commission to continue. Then they're going to have the same county commission. If they're happy with the representation they've had the last 16 years, they should vote for this guy. I believe that we need a change. I believe this is one of the seats that we can change, and it's going to be up to voters in Clark County whether they decide they've had enough of this type of representation.
So, on that, give me specifics on if you're sitting in your opponent's seat, what you would do differently from what he's doing currently.
Okay. In the I bring it up because some of you guys were there, and it's important to talk about. In the interview we had with Veterans in Politics, one of the last questions he asked was about the service and supplies budget by Melody Howard, and she asked him if this was an area that we could save money, and she mentioned that she thought on things even as simple as office supplies, that we could put these out for bid into local businesses and save a lot of money. And Commissioner Brown's almost exact quote was, "Now is the time. We've been so busy the last few years. Job growth has been so busy. We haven't had the time to look at it, but now is the time." And he inferred that this would be an area we could save money. Fast forward to May, it was around May 26th, but I could send you the exact date. He brought up on the county commission meeting reviewing the budget that there was, on the services and supplies budget, 42 of 50 areas increased. It was an increase of millions of dollars, and Commissioner Brown called it a potential slush fund. In July, I was on the radio. We had back-to-back appearances. I brought up the fact that he called it a potential slush fund, and no information's been brought to the public. And what he basically said was he'd have to know what I meant by a slush fund, and he had no clue what I was talking about. Well, if I ever use the word slush fund in public, a public meeting, I will darn sure know what I'm talking about. But secondarily speaking, this is an example where if I saw something like that, and it is 42 of 50 areas where it is millions and millions of dollars, and the everybody's watching the salaries and the benefits. So the salaries and benefits are nearly even, but then you go to the service and supplies budgets and you're seeing gross and large increases in the service and supply budget. I would go to the media, I would say something is wrong, and we would have a conversation about it. And we've seen how when the county commission attacks an issue in the media, there are things that we can change. There are contracts we can change. But if you're not willing to bring them to the public and take a stance, it's never going to change.
So what do you... why do you think that so many people are just ignorant?
I think
at the fact of they don't. I mean, county commission, city council, judges are those races that people typically don't. They don't even vote, or if they do in a presidential year like this one, Craig Lake is a Republican. So
right.
I don't like him because he's a Republican.
Well, it's two things. I mean, one of the issues is, like we've talked about, where the availability of money is, and when people are afraid to take a stand against, people with money, which I've obviously... You can criticize anything about me, but one thing is I've never been afraid of a race or afraid of anyone. I've been as open and honest as I can be, and, that's why I'm not afraid to go up against an incumbent. But secondarily speaking, it's, a lot of these issues, they're not important to you until you got to go sit before the judge for an issue that's important to you or your family. You know what I mean? It's not important to you until you're trying to open a business and these guys are out of their minds trying to over-regulate you, or they don't understand even what you're trying to accomplish as a business owner. Then all of a sudden it becomes important. But to me, it takes somebody who is able to articulate the points and make the public aware. If I am given the forum in the county commission to communicate with the public, they will have more communication than they know what to do with.
Well, Craig, the last question I have for you is, you're obviously a very passionate person, and you're very articulate and have been very successful. And I'm one that actually applauds success, unlike some others. But anyway, I'll leave that for my next rant. So, win or lose, what are you going to do to encourage more small business owners like yourself to get involved in this process? Because whether you win or lose, we need more energetic, young, successful leaders to keep taking on this fight. Whether you lose or not, it doesn't matter. We need more people like you. What can you do if you lose? Are you going to still be involved in the community to try to recruit people to say, hey, you know what, you can do this too?
No, I've definitely always been involved where I can be. When I lost my LAX selection, I spent a lot of time at the headquarters helping other candidates. I still do my turkey drives where we donate food to people in the community, and I think you lead by example. So the best thing I can do every day is just do the best I can, whether it's running my business, talking to other people, encouraging other people. You give 110% every day and hope you come out on the other side in the positive column.
Craig, one of my major question is what took place with Stanley Gibson. And if nobody knows, Stanley Gibson is a Gulf War veteran that got shot in back of the head while sitting in the squad car, while sitting in his Cadillac by a Metro officer back in December 11th. And I know the county commission, they control 60% of Metro's budget. Matter of fact, your opponent is the co-chair for the Fiscal Affairs Committee for Metro. And I see the county commission go after Las Vegas Constable John Bonaventura for a video his staff made with his consent or without his consent. It doesn't matter. And they went after him. And I'm saying to myself, well, if they go after him, who doesn't collect any taxpayer money, because all his money to run the constable is basically by the fees the public pay to get him to do a service, which is serve paper. And here we have the sheriff who gets 60% of the county's money to run Metro, and they don't say a word to him.
Right.
And they sit on his fiscal affairs committee and control his budget, but nothing. They don't say anything to the sheriff. And I remember we brought this up at the interview, and I remember your opponent said the reason they didn't go after the sheriff is because he's elected by the people. And I thought about that for a while, and I said, wait a minute. If they didn't go after the sheriff because he's elected by the people,
right,
and they control 60% of the sheriff's budget, and the sheriff gets paid by the taxpayers, why in the world are they going after John Bonaventura, who is the constable, who's elected by the people as well,
right,
who gets none of the county's budget because all his money is housed by the people that pay for process, and all his people did, I'm talking about John Bonaventura, is made a video. But the sheriff, his officers, killing people, but they don't go after him.
Right.
Do you see a problem with that?
No, I mean, I think there's challenges with the way that they handled it. And, you know, one of the challenges with, having the same people in office so long is they develop relationships sometimes that, you know, over a period of time, they can be unhealthy. It's great for the county commission to have a good relationship with the sheriff. The question sometimes, you know, I guess I'm speaking a little bit off the cuff here, but is how good is that relationship? And, you know, I have people that are some of my best friends. I mean, you've seen some of them. I mean, they know I'm the first one to tell them when something doesn't seem right or something's wrong. And you can't be afraid to go after someone, whether you're friends with them, whether you're buddies with them, or you've known them forever, if maybe some things don't look right. And I think the challenge with the issue you talked about is a couple things. One, you know, you guys have been a great advocate for the veterans courts and just how we handle and are aware of some of our veteran issues, because they can't be always handled the same as the rest of the community. And when you solve the base problem, maybe sometimes you don't get to the end result. That's one. But number two, you know, obviously in the last couple years, we'd had a few issues with our police officers and their use of force, and we've, you know, gone after that policy, which I said at that meeting was positive, that the use of force policy needed to be looked at. It was looked at, which I think is a step in the right direction. But I think maybe the commission was afraid in some cases to act or speak. And maybe until they had their facts or until the coroner's inquest was done. I don't know. I can't give you an example or an answer other than to say there's a lot of reasons why I think it could be. If I was in office, certainly once it got to that point, they needed to, you know, call for a look at that use of force policy maybe a little bit sooner than they did.
But I'm saying, how come they're quick to go after one elected official?
No, it's wrong. I mean, the answer is they obviously, you know, either had a reason they wanted to go after Bonaventura, or they had a reason why they wanted to leave Sheriff Gillespie alone. I think it was probably a little bit of both. But in either case, you know, you can't go after one thing and not go after the other. Or, you know, in any side of politics, you like your policies to be consistent. Whatever that policy is, whoever you're going after, whatever you're cracking down on, should be consistent across the board.
All right. Well, let's go hypothetical. What you know about the whole Gibson situation, what would you have done if you were a county commission sitting at that time?
I would have called that. I would say we need to look at the use of force policy now, and we do. You know, what Commissioner Brown had stated was that the Department of Justice was, you know, kind of nosing around or had been looking around, but nobody had said, hey, we need to get the Department of Justice in here. Hey, we need to. And for me, it's just an issue of trust in the community. I think 99.99% of our cops are great cops. I think we have a lot of great people in our community, but obviously by that that time, the trust with the public had been compromised a little bit or tarnished, and we needed to look at these things to ensure, to me, if I do something right or wrong, I've got no problem with anybody coming and looking at it, because either way, it's going to expose what the problem is, whether it's good or bad. You know what I mean? And it's same thing on the commission. If I'm ever doing anything on the commission, whether it's right or wrong, and someone wants to come look at it, there shouldn't be anything to hide. You know what I mean? Even with our, I look at expenditures, things like that, it's like, let's open them up, and it's the same thing here. If there was nothing to worry about or nothing of concern, then it shouldn't be a problem with people, working together to find out what happened or what's going on.
So do you know what boards your opponent sits on right now?
I know he is on the RTC board. I couldn't name all of them off the top of my head. I mean, I know some of the boards he's on, but specifically I've been more concerned about the RTC board. He's on, I think, the Mount Charleston board. He's no longer on the water board, but obviously he used to be involved with the water district.
Well, what issues you see face your district?
I mean, to me, it's issues that face the whole valley, which is clearly our economy. I think it's in a lot more dire position than anybody gives it credit for. I hear politicians talk about the economy or jobs like it's a buzzword. Some of our industries aren't hit as hard, but if you look at like construction sales in Clark County are off close to 90%. 60 to 80% of our construction workforce has been laid off. And I think it is honestly closer to 80. If you had half those people move, and then you had half those people find a new job, which are staggering numbers, you've still got a 20% unemployment rate in that industry. So to me, I look at making things easier and more friendly for businesses. Obviously, just now they're starting to look at these multi-jurisdictional licenses, I think, because maybe it's an election year. I don't know. But I don't know why it's taken 3-4 years to get some of these things moving that would be positive for our economy. But we've got to have more people in Las Vegas paying taxes, because if we just keep overtaxing the same people, we're never going to get out of this hole that we're in. But I think to me, that's the biggest hole, is we can't provide essential services for the community. We can't do anything unless we've got enough revenue coming in to provide those services. And right now, we've got deficits coming, we've got issues coming, and unless we figure out a way how to get this thing kick-started, short-term, medium-term, long-term, it's not going to matter much of the stuff we have to argue about, because we're not going to have any money to pay for anything.
Well, why should the people of your district go to the polls and vote for you?
There's 7 out of 7 members on this county commission are Democrats. It is a partisan race. I think we need more balance regardless of what side of the fence you're on. You'd like to see more people with different ideals come to the table. I'm a business owner. Really, there's maybe only one other commissioner with business experience. He's about 20 years removed. We need somebody in there if you're going to be talking to businesses about licensing, zoning, negotiating contracts, negotiating salaries. You want somebody who's actually done it in real time with real money. And I think that's something that I bring to the table. And clearly, I think as a younger candidate with a different voice, I have a different perspective, and I am able to get people's attention if elected.
Okay. Could you give us your contact information?
Yeah, the website is craiglake.us. I have a Facebook and a Twitter account as well, and I would appreciate your vote if you live in District C.
Thank you so much, Craig, for coming on.
Thank you guys very much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. Folks, that's Craig Lake, candidate for Clark County Board of County Commission District C and a Veterans in Politics endorsement recipient. We encourage all the voters that live in District C to go to the polls and vote for Craig Lake. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Don't go away, folks. We have another County Commission candidate. We have Barry Herr, candidate for Clark County Board of County Commission District, letter A.
Did you see the press release Veterans in Politics sent out in support of Clark County District Court Judge Alicia Kadish to the federal bench?
Yes, in 2008, Veterans in Politics endorsed 22 judicial candidates in the primary. Only 4 candidates did not become a judge. This was the same year they endorsed District Court Judge Alicia Kadish. Judge Kadish was one of the 18 of their endorsed recipients that is a sitting judge today.
Yeah, they take pride in their selection of candidates, especially when it comes to our judges. Judges are the first line of defense, and they immediately impact our daily lives.
I wonder if anybody knows that Judge Kadish was appointed to the district court seat by former Republican Governor Jim Gibbons to replace former district court judge Joe Bonaventure.
Yeah, as a jurist, Judge Kadish consistently demonstrates fairness, impartiality, and a dedication to upholding the law, regardless of whether she agrees with it. She follows the law and not legislates from the bench, which is what Republicans look for in a jurist.
Yeah, it is ironic, to say the least, that Republican U.S. Senator Dean Heller is now blocking Judge Kadish's federal judicial nomination because she insisted on following the law.
What he is using is a questionnaire Judge Kadish filled out in May 2008 from the group Citizens of Responsible Government. They asked Judge Kadish a question concerning the Second Amendment. The question they ask is, do you believe the individual citizen has a constitutional right to keep and bear arms?
I remember that. Kadish responded, I do not believe that there is this constitutional right, but I believe that reasonable restrictions may be imposed on gun ownership in the interest of public safety. Of course, I will enforce the laws as they exist as a judge.
That was a correct statement of law at the time. Individual citizens did not have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Reasonable restrictions could be imposed on gun ownership in the interest of public safety. Therefore, Judge Kadish's response demonstrated that she was well-versed and knowledgeable in this important area of the law. Moreover, she indicated she would enforce the law as they exist. In other words, Judge Kadish not only understood the law, but affirmed she would apply it regardless of her personal opinion.
Yeah, later the law changed. In District of Columbia versus Heller and McDonald versus City of Chicago, the United States Supreme Court held that the Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess firearms and that this right is fundamental and fully applicable to the states through incorporation in the 14th Amendment.
I remember that. After the Heller and McDonald decisions, Judge Kadish again confirmed that she would be bound by the law, not a personal opinion, and as such, if asked the same question today, she would respond, I believe that there is a constitutional right for individuals to keep and bear arms, and I would make clear that I would faithfully apply the binding precedent on the issue starting with the Heller and McDonald decisions, if faced with an issue regarding these important Second Amendment rights.
It sounds like, in both responses, Judge Kadish confirmed her commitment to upholding the law.
Yeah, now, in a sadly transparent attempt at political pandering that needlessly deepens the partisan divides that already paralyzes our federal government, U.S. Senator Heller has blocked Judge Kadish's congressional confirmation. And ironically, he is now forced to justify his position by arguing that when asked about the individual right to bear arms, Judge Kadish should have assumed activist robes and held that contrary to law. Such a right did, in fact, exist. In other words, Senator Heller must attempt to argue with a straight face that Judge Kadish is not qualified to be a federal judge because she understands the law and will uphold it.
Unfortunately, U.S. Senator Heller is not just sacrificing his own credibility among voters and true conservatives, but is selfishly denying his own constituents the benefits of a qualified, accomplished, universally respected federal judge. And that's what truly is disappointing.
Well, veterans and politics members believe in the Constitution and the right to bear arms. A majority of their membership has concealed carry weapons permits. I don't believe that they would endorse Judge Kadish in 2008 if they believed that she was against gun ownership.
Really? I don't understand how a freshman-appointed U.S. Senator could stop a federal appointment from a majority whip, elected U.S. Senator and the President of the United States.
Well, I know Judge Kadish should not be used as a political pawn to gain conservative votes on falsehoods. Judge Kadish's appointment should be allowed to move forward.
Please contact U.S. Senator Dean Heller's office at 702-388-6501 and ask him to let the appointment of Judge Kadish move forward to the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee.
Well, we're back. This is Steve Sands and Jim Jonas for Veterans in Politics. We have Barry Herr, candidate for Clark County Commission, District Letter E. Mr. Herr, how you doing, sir?
That's District A.
A is an apple. E? Who's an E?
Actually, I'm not sure.
You know, I'm looking right at it, and I said E.
Yeah, think of A as an apple as an accountant.
Okay. And that's what you are.
That's what I am, an accountant, certified public accountant here in Nevada.
And we need those. We
absolutely need those on the county commission
at
this point.
So tell us about yourself, Mr. Herr.
Well, like I said, I am a CPA, certified public accountant here in Las Vegas. Now president-elect of the Nevada Society of CPAs. I have been here for 22 years. I raised my daughter here. She had the opportunity to go to UNR. She's now married, has my grandson, and lives. And she and her husband are
something you want to tell us?
Yeah, my wife would be very upset about that. But they're back here in Las Vegas, and that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to run for county commission. And that is, simply put, I had the opportunity to raise my daughter here, and I want now my grandson to be raised in an area that has opportunity for growth for him, for any other brothers or sisters he may have, and because I like Las Vegas, I want to see it keep growing.
Okay, Mr. Herr, you're going up a very controversial county commissioner, a county commissioner that put his whole love life in the public's eye and wasted a whole lot of media time, didn't he, Jim Jonas?
Yep.
We could have been talking about fires or births or something more constructive. He put his whole love life in the public's eye. Would you have done something like that?
My wife wouldn't let me. Yeah, as far as that goes, I'm a firm believer. I do what I need to do so that I'm not going to embarrass myself. I'm not going to embarrass my family. I'm not going to embarrass my daughter. Not saying that my opponent did necessarily do anything to embarrass himself, but it's tough when you're in the public eye and you're dating somebody and you don't have that input to be able to help them the way it should be.
Well, what are you going to do different than what your opponent is not doing?
Well, one of the things my opponent is not doing is he's not looking long term. Like I said, I've got a grandson. I've got my daughter living here, and I'm looking forward to them growing and being here for the long term. My opponent, for example, with the firefighters, went against them, tried to take on them with regard to their sick leave abuse and everything like that. And while that's all very admirable in itself, there's a much better way to do it by using the internal controls, the internal auditing of the county to be able to find abuses there.
Well, you know what? Let me stop you right there. He took on the firefighters for abusing their sick pay.
Exactly.
But he's scared to death to take on the sheriff for killing unarmed citizens. What do you think that is? You think sick pay? Yeah, people think that money is more valuable than people's lives for some reason. For example, I'll give you an example, Mr. Herr. Your opponent got $16 million in a lawsuit he won against Clark County and McCarran Airport because of air space. But yet the family of Trevon Cole got $1.7 million for his life. So there's a problem with this community that values airspace than somebody's life, I think.
Well, but as far as the airspace goes, we could agree or disagree with that. The problem with that is, as anybody who makes an investment, whether it's in their business or in their home, things happen, unfortunately, and rules change and zoning changes happen.
But don't you think
and to hold the county responsible for that,
Right.
I disagree with Mr. Sisolak with that. As far as what happens with the police department and everything like that, there has been abuses of power by some of the police, and like Craig said earlier, most of the cops are good cops and want to do the right thing and everything like that. I happen to like Doug Gillespie, but I think at this point in time, just like in business, if there's problems going on from an internal standpoint, you take somebody from outside. And I think Gillespie needs to get somebody from the outside to be able to review what's happening, why the abuses are happening, and look for the right solutions, DOJ or whomever.
But Mr. Herr, how are you getting your message out to the people? Because I don't understand how our voters could vote for a man that sued the county, sued McCarran, and got $16 million off the back of taxpayers, and then vote him into office. It to me just doesn't make sense.
Why people vote the way they vote sometimes, we don't know. I mean, it depends. I don't know why some of the people vote for some of the officers that we have in there that are in there. My way of getting my message out is, number one, trying to. Basically, it's very grassroots, letting people know who I am, letting them know my background as a CPA, before I was a CPA, working in the business world as a controller, as a CFO for domestic and international companies, letting them know that I'm looking to any way to make the county more efficient, try to help them save money, and looking at long-term solutions, not just voting on something today without looking at the full ramifications of it. I'm going to go back to the firefighters for 1 second, simply because he took on the firefighters. The result so far has been that while some monies have been saved, only 2 people have been terminated for the abuses. Both have been reinstated through arbitration. The result on that is negligible, if anything, whereas by working with the internal controls within the county, we could have saved money that way. By sitting on the county commission, again, dealing with the metro police officers with some of the abuses going on there, explaining to them from a business standpoint if there's issues, if there's problems. And right now, for the public, in being in the public eye, people are going to say, are they truly independent when they're looking at internal affairs is looking at these issues? It's the internal affairs is doing a great job. However, just like in a business has an internal accounting department, if there's problems, they go outside of the system to make sure that it is truly independent, and that's what they need.
Well, Mr. Herr, my main question I have for you is that it's obvious that your opponent has done things that I'm just saying from a personal standpoint. This has nothing to do with veterans in politics specifically as an organization, but I mean, your opponent, like I said, won that lawsuit, and basically he kind of irritates me. I mean, I don't have a personal beef against Steve, but my main thing is that, I ran for the assembly, and I just have this real issue with incumbents getting so much of an advantage over the opponents. And, he has huge name recognition. I mean, he obviously has the resources to put billboards up all over, and actually one right by where I work. What are you going to do to get the people to actually go out and vote for you, a different voice? Basically, how are you going to defeat? It's like a David Goliath thing. What's your strategy to be able to overcome that?
That's a perfect example, David Goliath. Example. He's got the resources. He raised in excess of $1 million last year, and I would be very surprised if he hasn't matched or beat that at this point in time. And I'm coming in basically self-funded as a sole proprietor CPA and everything like that. It is a David Goliath type of an issue. Like I said, I'm trying to hit as many places as I can, talk to as many people as I can, try listening to the people. And my hope is that they're going to go out and tell their people not to vote for him, vote for Barry Herr, because Barry Herr is going to represent them better. I also believe that there is a lot of name recognition, and as Steve was talking earlier, there's good and bad too. In his case, he's got good name recognition and bad name recognition. And while my name is not exactly a household name, unless you're from back east and like Herr's potato chips, it's a simple name. I have run before, and I can be looked at on the internet. People can check it out, find out that what my background is like, find out what I've done with regard to being on the State Society, being a board member with the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, along those lines. They'll see a business leader. They'll see a business person who knows big businesses as well as small businesses, and hopefully they'll make the decision and pull it off.
Well, obviously you're a very intelligent person. You wouldn't be a CPA if you weren't.
You haven't asked my daughter recently, have you?
No. But so based on all that, we understand how much money you can raise, how much money he's raised, his huge name recognition. What was your drive to run for this office? Why do you think it's so important for you to put it out there? Because, I mean, to be blunt, most people are going to be honest with you and say you have no chance in hell of beating Steve Sisolak. Why would you even go through running against him?
Like I said, my goal is to get on the board of on the county commissioners, simply because I think, number one, we do need some, as Craig said earlier, it's all Democrats. It would be nice to have a little bit more balance there. But more importantly, I think my background as a CPA, as an advisor to my business associates and all, my background in retail management before I was even in accounting, I think we'd bring a different type of balance to the Board of Commissioners. And for that reason, I'm looking at long-term growth. I'm not looking just for 2 years or the next 5 years. I'd like to see the county grow well. We've had a lot of our challenges. Back in the 60s, Phoenix was perhaps the Las Vegas of its time, and it grew exponentially, and then came across and just hit a downturn, and now has done very well. What we need to do is emulate that, not everything they've done, but emulate a lot of what they've done, so we can go with a good, sustainable growth, diversify more as far as businesses go, and just get the county going. I think that'd be a benefit to everyone, not only the hospitality industry, but all the citizens.
Well, I mean, I just think you and Mr. Lake for running for office in general. I mean, I don't think a lot of the listeners really. I mean, Steve and I know we've run, so we understand how much time and effort it takes, and away from the family and everything else. So, I just want to say thank you for coming in, answering the questions, and good luck to you on your race. I really appreciate getting to meet you.
Hey, Jim, thank you very much. Steve, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm not done with you, Mr.
You're not done with me?
Well, I am. Steve's not.
Okay. I want to know what your intentions are to being on this county commission. Because
my intentions are honorable, sir.
I understand that, but what are you going to do differently, Mr. Herr, that's not being done? There's a reason why you chose to run against this incumbent, and I'd like to know what that reason is.
Like I said, I believe I can bring a different outlook onto the board.
Oh, all right. What is he not doing?
Let's do the water district issue.
Okay.
That the effect was that the businesses' water, because of fire sprinkler and that type of thing, increased anywhere from 200% to 400%, which is a phenomenal increase. Now, my understanding is that there were some examples to check out to find out how the effect was going to be on these businesses, but obviously was not done. They were not expecting it to be 200% to 400%. What we should have done is, and again, I would have personally taken it out to say, okay, let's see what Mirage is doing. I may have taken a dozen. What do they pay now? How are they going to pay under the new rate structure? Do the Mirage. Do one or the big line, maybe. But then also find out about Bob's Auto Body Shop in North Las Vegas, how it's going to affect the warehouse down in Henderson and other warehouses out in North Las Vegas, and take a realistic approach to this, because obviously that was not done. And at that point, we could have seen that it was going to have a dramatic effect and adjusted it accordingly. Now, I understand that there's needs for new fees and all that. I'm not. That's a different discussion. But the effect that this one had was just totally unexpected, and that should not have occurred. And I do believe that by having the CPA on the Board of Commissioners, I would have given that a little bit more of a look. What is the true effect going to be today, tomorrow, 4 years? How's it going to affect the residential? Because residents are also going to be affected by this, and that hasn't even been addressed yet. Okay.
Could you give us your point of contact?
Contact would be, my website is barryherr.com, CPA. I know it's not very original, but it's BARRYHERR.com.
And Mr. Herr, was that the only issue that you have, or do you have another one?
Well, again, like I was talking about with the firefighters, there's going to be more contracts coming up for renegotiation and all. And when I worked with other CPA firms, I've actually had unions as clients, so I think I've got a good rapport. I understand what they're looking for, but I also understand how to best represent the county so that we can get the best deal possible without the abuses in not just sick leave, but in pensions and all. Because right now that's a tremendous abuse in the, not abuse, but a waste that's happening. People retiring when they're 40 and collecting when they're 40. In private industry, even if you're vested and you're eligible for pension when you're 40, 42, 45, you're unable to collect until you're 60, 62, 65, depending on the agents, depending on the business. And we need to have that type of an approach on the Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Again, thank you very much.
That's Barry Herr, candidate for Clark County Board of County Commission, District Letter A for Apple, and a Veterans in Politics endorsement recipient. And we encourage all members of Veterans in Politics and anybody that goes to the polls and vote in District A to vote for Barry Herr for Clark County Commissioner. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Until next week.
And I had to start again with just my children and my wife. Views and opinions expressed on this program were those of the hosts and guests and did not necessarily reflect those of Vegas All Net Radio, its affiliates, or its parent company.